Hi, my name is Dina Masri. I'm presenting on European anti-Semitism giving way to Islamophobia. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are on the rise in Europe, but this doesn't only affect Europe, it affects the whole world. Europe has a well-known history with anti-Semitism, with the far right. But today, anti-Semitism is more of a concern with Muslims due to the increase in terror attacks, especially against Jews. These attacks create a divide and tension between the Muslims and the West. Also, the unfavorable and harsh policies of the West in the Middle East build more tension. The only way to end this vicious cycle is to change mindsets and policies. But before finding a solution, we must understand what's happening. Terrorist attacks. On January 7, 2015, terrorists attacked the offices of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo for creating a cartoon that made fun of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. On January 9, 2015, there was a shooting at a kosher supermarket in Paris, France. On January 11, 2015, protesters took to the street of France to show their solidarity with the victims and to support the right of freedom of speech. They started the hashtag Je suis Charlie. This means I am Charlie. Anti-Semitism. The graph shows there has been an increase in anti-Semitic attacks since 1989 to 2009. On February 14, 2015, there was an attack on a synagogue in Copenhagen, Denmark. One man was killed and 2 officers were wounded. This caused Jewish schools to close in Belgium and France. In May 2014, a Jewish museum was bombed in Brussels. In July 2014, 8 synagogues were attacked across Europe. There was also an increased number of attacks on men wearing kippahs. A 2012 survey of 90% of Jews in Europe showed that 66% of Jews in Europe feel anti-Semitism is on the rise. 50% fear being harassed in public and feel uncomfortable in Muslim neighborhoods. Jews now fear Muslim anti-Semitism more than far-right European anti-Semitism. Islamophobia. The far-right European anti-Semites have found a new target, Islam. After the Paris attacks, Islamophobic acts increased by 70% in France. Also, the French law forbids women to be entirely veiled. This has been a factor that has increased the tension between Muslims and the French. Many French believe Islamic culture is replacing French culture. Many Muslims believe that they are being labeled as intolerant and violent. Ahmed Merabat is the Muslim cop of Algerian descent who was killed in the Charlie Hebdo attack. This created the hashtag Je suis Ahmed, which means I am Ahmed. It was meant to show solidarity with all the victims, but also to stand against Islamophobia. Hassana Bathili is a Muslim immigrant from Mali who was an employee at the kosher supermarket and saved the lives of hostages by hiding them in the freezer. Pegida, Patriotic Europeans Against Islamization of the West. They are a German far-right political organization founded in Dresden in 2014. They are against the increase in Muslim immigrants in Germany. The slogan of Pegida, We Are the People, was the legendary rallying cry of the protesters in East Germany leading up to the fall of communism. They want to restore Germany and see themselves as being patriotic, not racist. They hold German flags, crosses, and some of the posters have Angela Merkel wearing the Muslim headwear, the hijab. Pegida neo-Nazism. Initially, the Pegida movement was supported by a number of Jews, with protesters holding Israeli flags, but these protesters were eventually chased out. Many of the signs read, "Just say no to Israel and let Germany finally be Germany." This referred to the national guilt after the Holocaust, which has caused many Germans to feel like they cannot be patriotic. The former leader of Pegida, Lutz Bachmann, uploaded a selfie of himself as Hitler with the caption, "He's back." He claimed it was satirical and that he took the photo at the hairdresser. He deleted his Facebook after the backlash, but it was too late and people had already taken pictures of other posts, such as a photo that said, 3Ks a day keeps the minorities away, which showed his support for the Ku Klux Klan. He also had other posts that referred to immigrants as cattle and scumbags. He resigned after the backlash. Reasons for Islamophobia. There has been an increase in immigrants from Middle Eastern and African countries. particularly from Syria and Mali, which are in the middle of civil wars and are majority Muslim. Unemployment is high, and the immigrants are an easy target to blame for the economy. Pegida protesters carry Russian flags because they want Russia to create a balance of power with the U.S. The logic is that this will cause fewer bombing campaigns by the U.S., and therefore fewer refugees will immigrate to Europe. The protests in Germany are not necessarily fueled by a fear of Islam, but rather frustration with the cost of reunification after the fall of the Berlin Wall. The immigrants are only making this reunification more difficult. Just as modern anti-Semitism is often strongest in places with no Jews, Pegida support is the highest in Dresden, a city with a population less than 0.5% Muslim. Counter-protests. The Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, said, "I understand many of the problems that occupy many people, such as the undeniable questions raised by immigration, which is otherwise beneficial and indispensable for our country, or about crime in the cities. But there is no place in Germany for hatred of Muslims or any minority." The counter-protests across Europe outnumbered the Pegida protests, especially in Newcastle, where thousands attended. Newcastle has a particularly high percentage of Muslims. The signs they held read, "Refugees welcome," "I love immigration," "Never again," and "Say no to racism, fascism, and Islamophobia." Reasons for the attacks. Socioeconomic reasons. The Muslims involved in the recent attacks have almost always been poor and disenfranchised young men. Often feeling ostracized from their communities, they claim to find identities in Islam. Political reasons. According to Ayatollah Shirazi, Western powers have carried out callous policies in the Middle East, drones, tortures, and political manipulations. This has caused Muslims to view the West as the enemy. Also, the support of the West for Israel, particularly after the violence against Palestinians in Gaza, has fueled the anger and tension. The emergence of ISIS has also encouraged violent attacks under the name of Islam. Rising above the hate. Sheikh Arif Abdul Hussein said, "Islam prohibits terrorism and crimes against humanity. Terror is the enemy of all." The French and European societies can look into the social causes of radicalism, such as feeling isolated from the community, and find ways to reach out to Muslims. Projects such as Germany's nonprofit that fights racial biases against Jews, Muslims, and others in secondary schools should be replicated across Europe. Muslims must fight anti-Jewish and anti-Western mindsets. Jews and Westerners must fight the falsehoods fueling Islamophobia. A change in mindsets and policies can help beat the twin menaces of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, and the vicious cycle can end.